Chowder has got to be one of the greatest cartoons of the late 2000s, releasing just before the 2010 Renaissance with shows like Regular Show and Adventure Time. Chowder is an absolute hidden gem in Cartoon Network's library of masterpieces. With 3 seasons, this show has got a good bit of ground to cover. So without further ado, it's time to look over the entirety of Chowder from beginning to end.
You take the moon and you take the sun.
You take everything that seems.
But first, some context. Meet Chowder, the star of the show. He's a young, chubby, purple bunny bear thing who's looking to become a master chef. He's a kid with a big heart to go with a big appetite, who also can sometimes be a big annoyance. Chowder's an apprentice to Mung Dal, who's an expert chef that runs his own catering company. Working alongside those two is Schnitzel, a big, strong rock monster who only speaks using one word, Rada.
Rada, 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 rada. Rada, 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 rada.
Oh my, Schnitzel! You're a naughty, naughty boy.
Oh, there's also Mung's lovely wife, Truffles, who takes orders and manages the cash register. She's an elderly mushroom Sprixie who's just not very nice, to put it lightly. Their company is located in the city of Marzipan, which has a culture largely based on all of its culinary delights. And nobody epitomizes that friendly culture more than Gazpacho, the woolly mammoth food vendor. Gazpacho often supplies ingredients needed to make whatever insane dish is on the menu that week. He's good friends with Chowder, and you'll see why as we get deeper into the series. There's a couple of other characters you'll learn about as we get further on in the video as well. But for now, let's jump into the first episode of the series. The first couple of minutes of the first episode show us exactly who Chowder is. That is, a kid who can be easily distracted, and isn't exactly the most in-shape guy in the world, but is definitely a hard worker at the end of the day. Oh, also, this seems minor, but that little rat guy with the candle on his head? Remember him for later. Chowder shows up in perfect Chowder fashion and finds Mung testing out mint that's so strong, it freezes himself in a block of ice. And before you ask, yeah, pretty much all the food in Chowder does stuff like that. While Chowder, unloads the groceries, Mung explains that their next order is a froggy apple crumble thumpkin, which is supposedly a really hard dish to make. They read off the recipe from a really big book of recipes and get to cooking. Step 1 has Mung, Chowder, and Schnitzel using the no fruit to try and get extra juicy apples.
It's an apple!
And though things seem to go well at first, Schnitzel ends up taking the brunt of an attack from a no-fruit dud. The recipe continues, and Chowder tries his hardest, but he just isn't quite experienced enough to get everything down to a T for this dish. The last step of the recipe is to beat the dish in a game of thumb wrestling. And with Mung not able to get the job done, and Schnitzel backing away, Chowder is tagged in, and resorts to beating the giant food hand, the only way he knows how. A taste test. Chowder wins, but starts biting off a bit more than he should, meaning Mung has to hold Chowder back desperately as the customer runs off with the dish. Pretty chaotic, huh? Well, that is just the first episode. The next episode is titled Chowder's Girlfriend, and well, I bet you can already guess what it's about just based on that title. While the episode starts off with Mung and Chowder going to Gazpacho's food stand to get some ingredients, called Grabbles, we're quickly introduced to Endive and her apprentice Panini, Mung's arch rivals. Endive's whole deal is that she's very fancy and stuck up, removing a lot of the love that goes into the meal. And Mung isn't a fan of that style at all. They bicker and fight, but Panini stops Chowder before he catches up to Mung and tries to share a flirt with Chowder. Gazpacho kinda gawks at the whole thing, and Panini declares Chowder to be her boyfriend. Chowder doesn't quite agree. Chowder wakes up the next day and starts venting to his pet Kimchi, who's a fart cloud, I think, about all his worries, and realizes he's gotta get out of the situation fast. Chowder asks Mung what to do, and he says he's gotta let Panini down gently.
Yep, it ain't easy being a heartbreaker.
Rada, rada.
And so he heads right over to Miss Endive's kitchen to do just that. Chowder tries to break off from Panini in not so gentle ways, but each time she finds a way to still say he's her boyfriend.
Want a cookie, Chowder? Would I? Aw, man!
He even puts on a whole musical to try and tell her he's not her boyfriend, complete with pyrotechnics. Some of the fireworks shock a Zeus-looking guy from above, too, and cause him to blow up the whole studio. But even still, Panini sees the whole disaster as a big act of love. Oh, and also, make sure and remember the guy who sings that song. He'll show up again.
I'm not your boyfriend. I am not your boyfriend.
Chowder goes to Gazpacho for advice. And well, he doesn't have much experience with girls. He does have some advice though, saying Chowder has to marry Panini to save her reputation. Not sure that's how that works, but whatever. Chowder has Mung bake a wedding cake. He brings it to Panini and she says she needs space because Chowder is being too clingy. Chowder walks off in glee and the episode ends. Well, hey, he got what he wanted. In the next episode, Chowder decides he wants to make his first solo recipe, and Mung gladly recommends the same recipe he made as his first solo venture, pickle in a cup. Sounds hard. Chowder wants something tougher though, and decides to go with Mung's second solo recipe, Burple Nurples. Chowder gets very carried away with cockiness while cooking though, and poisons his dish by accident. But Mung is too worried to shatter Chowder's dream to tell him.
Why won't you trust me as a chef, Mom? Nurples are done.
In disguise, Mung goes up to Chowder's Nurple stand and buys all the treats off him for $50. But then realizes Chowder's still got another 60 of them to sell, and so goes to Truffles for cash. Anywho, remember that rat I told you to remember earlier? Well, he's here. His name is Gorgonzola, and he's kind of a jerk, only buying a Nurple off of Chowder to see if they're disgusting. Mung, disguised again, comes in and tries to buy the Nurples before Gorgonzola gets poisoned.
75.
350.
80.
360.
85.
800,000.
Stay out of these.
And ends up paying hundreds of bucks to save the little green rat's life. And then Chowder whips out another batch. Mung, trying to get a free sample, decides to just take the Nurples and run, before plunging the Nurples into a volcano. His costume is burnt off, and he then tells Chowder that he's still proud of him. He may be dirt poor now, but in heart, Mung still got a lot to give, it seems. The next episode, Schnitzel Makes a Deposit, is just an all-time classic. It's simple, but I swear, if you watch one episode from this show, it's gotta be this one. Schnitzel gets his paycheck, and Mung has Chowder go with him to start his own saving account, much to Schnitzel's annoyance. Basically, for the rest of the episode, things just don't go Schnitzel's way. Can't say too much else, as this one is just pure comedy. But please, watch this one. Great Schnitzel episode.
Would you?
Would I?
Would you?
Would I?
Would you?
Would I what?
Care for a free lollipop?
Would I?
I'll go ahead and take this time to note, though, the credits of the show always feature super short skits with characters from the show in puppet form, and they're usually a good little laugh.
A pat of blutter, and finally, the timeless touch, a broken clock.
When do I get to do something?
You, my boy, will be stirring.
This show uses a lot of different animation and art styles, and I am here for it. In the episode's certification class, Mung realizes that his certificate of chef authenticity is out of date, meaning he's gotta get it renewed. He shows up to certification classes with Chowder, but sees Panini and Endive also have shown up to renew their license. The instructor, Ruben, then emphasizes the importance of following a recipe, claiming that those who don't are recipe pirates and will never get their certificate. Ruben tasks everyone with boiling water, and while Endive and Panini follow instructions perfectly, Mung even tries to do that as bombastically as possible and earns himself a pirate hat. Mung then tries to follow a sandwich recipe exactly, and actually succeeds thanks to Chowder's help. Endive turns in her sandwich and gets praised by Ruben.
This is fantastic.
You'll find that everything I do is fantastic.
But when Mung turns his in, he says he's allergic to mayo. And even though Mung followed the diagram exactly, the customer is always right. Ugh. Customer service can be the worst. This whole unfair shtick keeps going on, and each time Mung gets more and more pirate apparel slapped on him, and eventually he's forced to walk the plank right out of the class and into a dumpster. Endive gets her certificate from Ruben, and things start to make sense when we see he put his phone number on the document so she could call him. Ew. Meanwhile, Mung decides to finally live up to his pirate lifestyle and just steals Endive's certificate, saving his business in the process. Ruben is really a pig, isn't he? Literally. In the episode The Wrong Address, Mung and Chowder are sent to make a delivery, while Schnitzel stays back and cleans up the kitchen. Chowder immediately eats the map, and so the chefs decide they've gotta find the house address with their gut. After stopping for a police chase, Chowder gives random directions all the way to a bad part of town. They show up to this guy's door, and obviously, he says he didn't order anything.
I didn't order any roast most.
Oh, yeah, you did. His gut says so. That'll be $30.
A rat comes out of the wall and chases the guys back to the street where they find their car was stolen. Yeesh.
Now remember, we parked the car right next to this mine here.
Angry pedestrians and the rat chase after them, and so they hop into a random pedestrian's car only to get pepper sprayed in the face. Yeesh. Again. The rat jumps aboard and a giant pepper spray fight breaks out, causing the snail car thing to crash into Mung's car. Which, hey, at least they found it. The rat says that he's the one who ordered the roast, and of course, he doesn't tip. Honestly, I'm surprised he even paid. They get back to the kitchen and see it's been completely destroyed, and watch Truffles get arrested by the police, and decide that all their guts can say about that is that Schnitzel has got some cleaning up to do. Poor guy. The next episode actually follows Schnitzel and Truffles' point of view during the last episode, as they deal with a little blind owl dude. Remember that police chase Mung and Chowder stopped for earlier? Yeah, that's because the little bird dude was driving. When the bird accidentally launches himself into the kitchen, Truffles thinks it's the customer that Mung just left to deliver for, and so decides they've got to take care of him until he gets back. Oh, and the police, led by the dog Sergeant Hoagie, are outside waiting for the owl guy who's a wanted criminal due to his blind, reckless driving.
Oh, it's for you, dear.
The little old man ends up completely trashing the kitchen, but Truffles thinks it's just Schnitzel being an idiot, and so she ties them both up. Schnitzel escapes and talks to the cops outside, who hype this old owl guy up as being a master criminal. Schnitzel, worried of what would happen to Truffles despite how annoying she's being, decides he's gotta save her from the senile old owl dude before he hurts her, and he does that, at the expense of the kitchen. The police thinks Truffles is their guy and arrest her and let the real one escape, leaving poor Schnitzel terrified. Here's another classic. Gazpacho stands up. Mung and Chowder bake up a meanie cream cake, and Chowder writes a mean message on top. Or at least he tries, because it turns out the guy can't write. Chowder practices writing in public, but accidentally writes on the viewer's screen. Gazpacho helps Chowder and breaks the fourth wall entirely in the process.
What about that one?
Yeah, that one doesn't come off. I tried. So what's up?
This show is full of that brand of mind-bending humor. Chowder asks Gazpacho for help, and in return, he gives a bit of advice from his mom. Gazpacho tells Chowder he's working on his comedy act, but needs material, but he's never written anything down. And so the two decide to help each other out, having Chowder write down jokes for Gazpacho as they come up with them.
Observation comedy.
What's that?
It's where you look around and comment on all the funny things you see.
Like your fly being down?
The two brainstorm all day, with Chowder writing everything down in his comedy gold book. Chowder shows Mung the book, who still can't read a word of his writing, and so Chowder starts cramming anything legible into the book.
Rada. Okay, rada.
Gazpacho shyly shuffles on stage and starts reading from the Book of Comedy Gold, which is now essentially just a cookbook. He lists off recipes in the form of jokes, which, I mean, hey, Chowder and Mung really liked it, so he's got that going for him. Oh, and remember earlier how Gazpacho's mom didn't sound too nice?
Mother says you can tell a lot about a person from their handwriting. That's why she reads my diary.
Well, at least she got him a cake. That mean one that Mung and Chowder were making earlier. Note to self. Gazpacho's mom is heartless. Another episode we've got to talk about is Sniffleball. It's a hot summer day, and hey, look, that Zeus-looking dude who ruined Chowder's concert is back. Mung drags Chowder out to play Sniffleball with a bunch of the neighborhood kids, even though Chowder isn't really interested, to put it lightly. Also on the field is Panini, still in love with Chowder. Gorgonzola, still not friendly at all, and Gazpacho, still afraid of his mother. Oh, and in case you were wondering, Sniffleball is just baseball, but more gross.
He's got it. Get a room.
After Panini torments Chowder with a kiss, he steps up to bat with Gorgonzola pitching. Gorgonzola is nicknamed the Zinger, but his pitch isn't really, well, good. Still, Chowder gets 3 strikes and is out. Gazpacho entices him with going home, like the base, not actual home, but Chowder doesn't get that. And so Chowder decides he's trying again. He hits the ball and starts going across all the bases, all 14. Yeah, I guess Sniffle Ball is harder than actual baseball. Oh, also, for one of the bases, there's a little Mario reference, so that's kinda cool. Despite getting tagged, Chowder still runs to his actual home. And I guess all is well for the chubby purple bunny thing.
That's what I call a home run.
The next episode, Mung on the Rocks, has Mung accidentally forget about his and Truffle's anniversary, which means, hey, it looks like they've been going strong for 450 years. Jeez, that's some dedication, even if he did forget the anniversary.
Well, if you love this kitchen so much, why don't you marry it?
Ooh!
Truffles stops talking to Mung. Mung gets real sad. His orders start getting affected by the sadness, and he even gets a little insane too. Not good. Gazpacho says that when his mother is mad, he gives her fizzy river juice fruit to make her happy again. So maybe it'll work with Truffles. But well, the can is shaken. That won't go over well. The can explodes, flooding the city. And Mung tries to save Truffles, but ends up having to have Truffles save him. The two take the moment to go on a romantic boat ride. And we even see a flashback of young Mung and young Truffles. Aww, that's kinda cute. In the next episode, we've the debut of a fan-favorite character, Chestnut, a little blue gremlin guy who always confuses things for, well, other things, I guess. In this case, after Chowder accidentally knocks Mung out with a warm glass of milk,
I should add lots.
Oh, be sure to add only a tiny, tiny amount. Warm root is a very powerful sleep agent.
Chestnut somehow mistakes Mung's unconscious body as a dining room table. Well, that figures. Thankfully, Mung wakes up after rolling into the ocean and all ends well. Except for Chestnut, I guess, who is still out of a dining room table. Seriously, what dining room table is blue, has a mustache, a nose, glasses?
Oh, happy days, oh, happy days. Chestnut's been looking all over for this table.
Like, how does someone mistake that? Next up, we've got the episode At Your Service. Endive gets hold of a pair of rare ingredients Mung desperately needs before him.
Move it out of my way.
I'd be happy to oblige, Mr. Doll.
Oops.
And so he decides he'll do whatever she wants for a day for them. Or they can admit she's the better chef. Alright, whatever she wants for a day it is. They're forced to clean her grease hole, clean her pool, and then peel her grotatoes in her dungeon. Though it seems they're crushed by the massive potatoes at first.
What have I done? Panini dear, remember them fondly, for they were good people. Keep them in your heart like a candle keeps its flame. La la la.
Turns out they were able to make grotato salad. And in a rage, Endive destroys the fruit Mung needed all along. What a piece of work, huh? The next episode, Chowder and Mr. Fugi, introduces us to who else? Mr. Fugi. He's a red balloon carried around by a creepy cat guy who's very rich and likes to eat. And so he has Chowder take him around the city to all his favorite food places. Unfortunately, Mr. Fugi isn't too keen on sharing. And so Chowder suffers the whole trip pretty much.
Hey, buddy, down here. Why not just bite the cone and suck the thrice cream out?
I like the way you think, Mr. Cone.
Tell that to my wife.
That's pretty much the entire episode, honestly. Just remember Mr. Fugi. Also, yeah, that cat is really freaky. In the episode Rat Sandwich, Reuben returns. Ugh.
I never wanted to see you two dirtbags here again.
My good sir, I had assumed that was just a friendly suggestion.
Well, here's another suggestion for you.
He's going around using his new pet rat to scare civilians and mooch off their food they leave behind. And his next target is Mung's catering company. After getting a sandwich from Mung, Reuben has his rat friend play dead in his sandwich and tells Mung and crew that he'll put the catering company out of business if they don't cater to his every whim. Literally. Oh, and Chowder just wants to try the rat sandwich. The gang distracts Reuben. Chowder nabs the sandwich and takes a bite, and finds the rat to still be kicking. Chowder apologizes, saying he was just hungry, and the rat says he is too, but Reuben won't feed him. And so, even after Reuben calls in his backup rats, they all turn on him. and send him out of the kitchen. Thank God he got what he deserved that time. Another important episode is Chowder loses his hat, and you'll never guess what happens in this one. Yeah, this one gets a bit complicated. But the big thing to take away from all the shenanigans of this one is the reappearance of Chestnut, who's still as bright as he is tall. In this one, after Chowder loses his hat, he finds it and thinks it's a vacation home. Alright then. Oh, also Chowder did try to write his name in there beforehand in case it ever gets lost, but again, he can't write. Nice callback. In the end, Chestnut settles for Chowder's hat being his mobile home instead. Well, I guess that makes more sense than a vacation home. And Mung being a dining room table? No, seriously, how did he mistake him for that? I'm still amazed. Here we go. First two-parter. And in this one, Schnitzel is fed up with his job. After asking for a raise and being denied, he officially quits the catering company and storms off into the streets looking for a new job. Eventually, Schnitzel comes across Endive, and she picks him up instantly, but mainly because she's extremely into him. Ooh boy.
You're here about the job? Oh, I'm sorry. I just stepped out of the shower.
After being pestered by Panini about Chowder and put into a questionable uniform, Endive has Schnitzel save her from a fake drowning accident so she can get him to kiss her during CPR. Schnitzel isn't into it really, but walks it off after realizing she's rewarding his heroism with a free feast.
Hi, Schnitzel. Are you enjoying your first day on the job?
Rada, rada.
Panini!
Mung, Chowder, and Sniffles try to break in and rescue Schnitzel, but Endive catches them before their escape. Thankfully, they break out, thanks to a distraction from Chowder, but even still.
Maybe someday you'll learn how to treat a man right.
I know how to treat a man. Just not a rock monster man.
Schnitzel wants to stick with Endive. Endive takes Schnitzel's commitment to her in a romantic way, though, immediately setting up a wedding. Schnitzel, though, explains it's just a job for him, and that he already has a girlfriend, who's just an ink rock with a bow. That's kinda amazing. Schnitzel books it, jumping off a balcony, and is saved by a giant puppet in the sky, saying the cosmos are out of whack now that he isn't with Mung and Chowder. Oh, and in case you were wondering who that puppet is, that's C.H. Greenblatt, the actual creator of Chowder. Super meta. Anywho, Schnitzel returns to Mung's catering company, gets a raise, and then some, and the gang is back together again. Schnitzel really did deserve all the love he got in this episode, man. Really underrated. In the finale of the first season, Chowder and Mung head off to participate in the Apprentice Games, an athletic competition for all the apprentices of Marzipan City to show off their skills. And well, we all know Chowder isn't an athlete. The winners from last year's games arrive too, that being Dance Master Pate and his apprentice, Ceviche. And yeah, that's the same guy who did Chowder's musical all the way back at the beginning of the season. Weird seeing him show up again. Panini and Endive aren't excited to see them, by the way. When Panini tells him just how physical the event is, he freaks out. And the only way Mung can get him to compete is by offering him the victory reward of ultimate thrice cream. Gorgonzola also shows up with his candle holder master, Stilton, and Chowder promptly falls right on top of them. The queen of the games arrives and announces that this year, the theme of the games is teamwork, meaning the apprentices have got to pair up. Panini gets Ceviche.
Somebody please take him! Partners! Partners!
And Chowder gets Gorgonzola. When Gorgonzola and Chowder start fighting, Stilton and Mung decide to throw them out and disguise themselves as their apprentices so they can win it for themselves. Ceviche and Panini start to perform for their final challenge, but then Mung and Stilton crash their dance number, instantly getting booed for their own horrible dancing. Chowder and Gorgonzola crash the show next, dressed as Panini and Ceviche, and start singing a really bad song about wanting the thrice cream and acceptance from their masters.
All we ask of thee is ultimate thrice cream.
The crowd runs off, and even the queen floats off, meaning absolutely nothing is resolved. Well, that's one way to end a season. In one of the first episodes of Season 2, after the president of the Apprentice Club ditches everyone, Panini campaigns for the position, wanting to make child marriage legal. For obvious reasons, Gorgonzola wants the position too, but everyone hates him, so he gets Chowder to run as a puppet for him, manipulating him with food. Panini puts up posters alongside Ceviche, and it turns out he's got a huge weird crush on her. A little awkward considering she's doing this all for Chowder, huh?
You're so awesome. No, you are so awesome. I so want to kiss you.
Gorgonzola and Chowder deface their posters, but all it does is give Panini the pity vote. Eventually, Patai hosts a debate, and though Panini is great, Chowder just isn't great with words.
Well, at least I'm not a girl! Slander! Slander!
And then Gorgonzola makes matters worse by dumping mud on Panini. The crowd goes nuts until the original president shows back up. And in the end, Panini forgives Chowder for what he's done. Well, I guess that's good. It's now time for the holiday special, telling the story of Kanishmas and its iconic version of Santa, Kanish Kringle. He brings gifts to you if you make a good schmingerbread house. But if not, he wrecks your house. Kinda sounds like a mix of actual Santa and Krampus.
Look that guy up if you dare, folks.
Anywho, Mung and Chowder are off getting ready to celebrate, but Chowder finds what he wants as a present, that being an electric broccoli trimmer, and shows it to Mung. Sadly, Mung tells Chowder to not get his hopes up, as he doesn't have money to buy it himself, and he doesn't think Kanish Kringle can help out either. Chowder and Gorgonzola debate Kanish Kringle's existence, before Chowder heads off to go see the man himself, who very clearly is not just gazpacho in a costume sitting in a chair at his stand.
Rada.
Seriously, aren't you a little old for this?
Rada.
Endive shows up as well with Panini in tow, and tells Chowder that the reason Kanish Kringle isn't gonna get Chowder a present is because Mung always screws up his schmingerbread houses.
I've drawn up some blueprints of the gingerbread house that we're building.
Chowder motivates Mung to give it his all this year with the house, but even still, they just can't quite get it right.
So tasty! We tried 50 times!
Worried Chowder will be disappointed come Kanishmas morning, Mung goes to Endive to buy a schmingerbread house off of her, essentially admitting she's the better chef. Man, Chowder wants to save Mung's dignity though, and so decides to try and make a last-ditch effort to save Mung's dignity, and even accepts Panini's help. Boundaries are being broken today, I'll tell ya. After Gazpacho starts feeling guilty about lying to kids with his Kanish Kringle outfit, he ditches the costume, and Chowder decides to use the costume to make Mung think Kanish Kringle does like his house. Oh, and they recruit Gorgonzola. Again, boundaries. They show up in costume. But so does the real Kanish Kringle. He tries to eat the schmingerbread house, but Chowder gets to it first, and Mung sees the whole thing. Chowder explains he just wanted to make Mung happy, which even gets Kanish Kringle emotional. Chowder gives Gorgonzola a peace offering of sorts, and also gives Panini a kiss for her help too. Now that's character development. Kanish Kringle gives Chowder his broccoli trimmer, meaning everyone gets what they wanted, I guess. In the episode The Hot Date, Sergeant Hoagie, remember the police dog from all the way back in Season 1, is getting ready to go on a blind date and is super anxious. The biggest thing of note about this episode is that literally for no reason, the girl he's going out with is Miss Bellum from the Powerpuff Girls. I have no idea why this crossover happened, but it's kinda neat, I guess.
Excuse me, I'm looking for my blind date. I was supposed to meet him here, but I ran late.
The next episode, Truffles gets sick, meaning the cash register is unmanned, so the guys go on a shopping spree. By the end of it all, they look utterly ridiculous.
I should have had a nose job facelift tan a long time ago, don't you think, Schnitzel?
And have spent every cent they had. And because they're out of money, they can't even pay for the animation of the show, meaning all of a sudden, we just get the voice actors in live action doing a car wash, so they can at least make the money back for that. This show is insane.
What are we gonna do?
Rada.
No, we are not going home. We've got to save the show.
But where are we gonna get the money to pay for it?
Truffles finds out they spent all the money and has them pay back every last bit by working for Endive. And the guys learn their lesson. Don't get a facelift. I mean, save your money. In the episode Wonton Bombs, we get to meet Mung's old master, Lo Mein, who's back to humiliate his apprentice with stories from the past in front of all of Marzipan City. Lo Mein tells the story of Mung's greatest failure, the Wonton Bomb. He took the order on his own as an apprentice, but got distracted thinking of the ladies who ordered it the whole time.
Orders. Perhaps you like some squats with that order.
Causing him to use all the wrong ingredients. To make things right, Chowder and Mung go back in time to make sure young Mung isn't embarrassed that day by switching out his wonton bombs with actually good ones. Chowder almost interacts with young Mung, but present-day Mung tells him not to do so, or the space-time continuum could collapse.
This is so uncomfortable!
Long story short, they switch the food, get back to present day, and all seems well. Until Chowder brings young Mung into the future and everything collapses. Well, in the episode The Trouble with Truffles, Truffles' loud grating voice finally starts catching up to her, with it scaring customers away and hurting the guys as well. She grabs a knob that lets her choose new voices, and she finds a very soothing southern accent that the guys love.
Well, hello, tall, blue, and skinny.
But Truffles, your voice,
And the customers swarm too, so it seems like a total win. Things are so calm that even Schnitzel is able to talk normally for a moment.
Yo, my name's Schnitzel. All right!
But he falls over and switches back to normal just a few seconds later. Still, that's a first for the show right there. The guys realize without her loud voice, Truffles isn't threatening to them, and so they can do whatever they want, eventually just going full caveman. After the guys take the voice knob, Truffles acts like them to get it back, restoring her old voice and in turn the old way of life. And all goes back to normal, just with earmuffs this time. Next up is another two-parter, The Dinner Theater. When the catering company is looking for a way to drum up business, Gazpacho pops in saying a dinner theater murder mystery show is the way to go.
Oh, I've been looking for a reason to use the stage I built in the middle of the kitchen.
It's settled then!
Auditions are held, and unfortunately for Chowder, Panini is cast in a major role. Gazpacho is cast as the evil Baron von Bonbon, and Chowder's cast as the detective Schmirlock Honeycombs.
Rada.
But he really wants to wear an apple costume for some reason. Chowder heads over to Gazpacho to rehearse, but gets confused and thinks Gazpacho is actually Baron von Bonbon and killed the real Gazpacho. Chowder gets even more confused when Mung tells him again that he's Schmirlock Honeycombs, thinking that the actual Chowder is dead now too. This stupidity is making my head hurt. After Chowder tells Panini his plan to use her as bait to lure the Baron out, she leaves while he isn't looking, crying of course, to which he thinks the Baron has struck again. God, Chowder is dumb in this episode. Chowder gets Ceviche and Gorgonzola in on his plan to stop the Baron, with Ceviche loathing he never got to tell Panini how much he loved her. Gorgonzola understands Chowder's just being stupid, but goes along with the plan anyway. And the three decide to just put on a musical without any of the other actors knowing about it to catch the Baron off guard, because nobody dies in musicals. Chowder shows up on opening night and gets confused to why Panini is still alive.
Panini's part of the show, Schmirlock.
She's supposed to be dead! This ruins everything!
But figures they must all be in on this sick act and runs off. Thankfully, they've got an understudy for Chowder. Oh, also, before the show, there's a very moving bit of pre-entertainment called Donde Está. It's a bunch of food talking to each other, only saying Donde Está. It's really emotional. Trust me, guys, I swear.
Donde está?
The play begins, and it doesn't go too well, even before Chowder ruins things. When he does show up, though, things get heated, and the crowd lunges at Panini, wanting to kill her themselves if the Baron won't do anything. Apparently, musicals just make them real angry. The lights come up, and Panini is crumpled, but not dead. She explains Chowder kissed her when the lights went out, and she fainted from love. Unfortunately for her, though, she's not correct. It was this thing that kissed her. Weird ending. Lesson learned. Theater is weird. Time for another classic, Big Ball. Mung's catering company is selling peanuts at a stadium that's hosting a big ball game. Truffles thinks the game is stupid, but Mung finds that blasphemous and gets mad at her for not saying the full name of the game, which is field tournament style, up and down, on the ground, manja, flanja, blanja, banja, ishka, bibble, babble, flabble, doma, roma, floma, boma, jingle, jangle, every angle, bricka, bracka, flacka, stacka, 2-ton rerun, free-for-all, big ball. Whew. That's a mouthful. Truffles is baffled that it's tradition for neither team to ever score in the game, and decides to take things into her own hands to try and win.
I told you scoring will ruin! Field tournament style, up and down, on the ground, manja, flanja, blanja, bonja, ishka, bibble, babble, flabble, doma.
Mung takes the other side to preserve the honor of the game. Just as it looks like Schnitzel, who's working for Truffles, is about to score, Chowder, who's working for Mung, eats the ball. Ew. However, during official tea time, Truffles scores and wins the game. causing the monster underneath the stadium to get up and throw the crowd into the garbage. What is this show? Skipping ahead a bit to Apprentice Appreciation Day, it's Chowder's big day, and he's got one thing on his mind: slawberry cake. The gang goes over to Gazpacho's to get the slawberries, but Endive shows up and says she's throwing an even more extravagant party for Panini. Mung gets fed up and says he'll throw a party even bigger than hers, and a cycle of pettiness begins. Mung sets up a circus-themed party, but when Chowder asks for slawberry cake, Mung insists it's not good enough for him. Meanwhile, Panini wants Chowder to be at her party, but Endive says she's deserved this weird human guy instead. She's not interested and walks off. Panini meets Chowder by the dock, and they have a genuine conversation about how their masters won't listen to what they want on their special day, and think maybe they aren't so special after all. Mung finds Chowder and realizes he got too swept up in trying to make the party big that he forgot about Chowder himself, and then gives him a cake. Endive shows up too and wrecks the dock, but eventually allows Chowder to go to Panini's party. But let it be known, Chowder insists he is still not Panini's boyfriend. The next episode, A Fair to Remember, lives up to its name undoubtedly. Chowder is running away from Panini and finds a girl named Marmalade, who lets him hide in her hair. She then gives him a makeover that apparently tastes good, and well, I guess a nice friendship ensues. Panini isn't pleased.
What's going on here? For a second there, it looked like you found a new
Girlfriend!
Gazpacho shows up and takes the three, along with Ceviche, to the medieval utensil fair. And again, Chowder and Marmalade hit it off. With Panini desperate, she decides to use Ceviche's love for her to make Chowder jealous.
in love with you.
You are?
Of course. No, we're just trying to make Chowder jealous.
I love you so much.
But it doesn't work. Hey, I'll say this though. Panini's getting a bit of a taste of her own medicine now, I guess. Panini challenges Marmalade to a joust, but it rains right before and rusts the utensils. Marmalade explains to Panini, though, that she isn't looking to marry Chowder, instead having her sights set on Ceviche. And well, I'll say this. Ceviche is getting a taste of his own medicine, I guess. In the next episode, Tofu Town Showdown, we get a bit of a backstory to Schnitzel. When he and Chowder show up to Tofu Town for a delivery, Schnitzel panics and tries running, before he's approached by a girl who explains his mysterious past. Supposedly, Schnitzel was a hero of Tofu Town, who fought with a bologna sword to protect Old Man Shabu Shabu. Interesting name. Unfortunately, an evil gang of ninjas called the Teriyaki Triad, alongside their leader, Peking Duck, captured the old man and shoved him in fortune cookie batter after beating Schnitzel in battle. Schnitzel walked away that day, never to return. With Chowder singing karaoke to distract the other ninjas, Schnitzel finds the duck and battles him. There's a lot of references to a wide variety of things in this scene too. Schnitzel's in a Kill Bill suit, he has Super Saiyan hair for a moment, and even the duck is poorly dubbed like an anime character. Crazy how much detail they put in just 3 minutes.
And now, prepare to feel pain like you never felt before. On your body.
Oh, and the old man is saved too. Kinda forgot about that.
Final episode alert.
This one titled Chowder Grows Up. Yeah, that sounds like a last episode title. Okay, so Chowder starts off by blowing up the kitchen again. You know, the usual. But this time, afterwards, Mung expresses concern that Chowder won't be ready to be a master chef of his own when he retires. Chowder doesn't want to grow up though, and sings a song about his feelings for 20 years. By then, he's finally grown up.
Weren't you listening to my song?
For 20 long years I've been listening.
And it's time for Mung and Truffles to retire. A lot of other stuff has changed too, as we'll see throughout the course in this episode. First of which being that Schnitzel is now married to Endive. Wow. What about his pink rock girlfriend though? They were perfect for each other. Mung and Chowder fly.
Well, I didn't make it fly.
Oh, sure, anything's possible in one of these 30-minute specials.
Yeah, fly over to Panini's bakery, where she's slowly gone insane due to Chowder not loving her. Yeesh, that's rough. Oh, and she takes out her frustrations on her new apprentice, Ambrosia. Yeesh, that's rougher. Meanwhile, Gorgonzola is head of a big corporation, but he's still stuck with the thoughts of bullying Chowder, taking it out on his apprentice, Kebab. A more inspiring story, though, is Gazpacho's, who closed the stand to go off and become a ninja.
Yesterday I defused a bomb with nothing but a paperclip and a trout. And last Thursday I was seen in the dark woods doing the karate.
And he also dates girls now. This seems too good to be true. Chowder decides to start looking for an apprentice so he can grow up, and finds Scraps, a nervous turtle who lives in a box. Chowder tries a recipe, fails, and then he runs off into the desert screaming. Scraps came along too. Just when they seem like vulture food, Gazpacho saves them. But he's not a ninja. He's actually just hiding out in a cave alone and away from reality. Eventually, Chowder decides he can grow up, but still do things his way. And so, he and Scraps head home and ditch the recipes and cookbooks to make this thing. It doesn't look great.
No, I say it's pretty darn good. Scraps?
No, Scraps, don't!
And it's still half-baked. But apparently, everyone is surprised to find it's actually somewhat good. From there, everyone moved on with their lives, with Mung and Truffles finally retiring, Gorgonzola finally having a guy to brag to, Gazpacho finally running a food comedy show, and Chowder running the catering company, married to Panini with a bunch of babies.
I had 20 more yesterday.
Yes, I did.
Oh, hi, new babies.
The end. One last thing though, this show did have one slight semi-revival in a music video of Lil Nas X's song, Hey Panini. It's not official, but it looks pretty dang good, I'd say.
Hey Panini, don't you be a meanie, thought you wanted.
But okay, now for real, the end. Thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, and comment below what shows you want to see next. See ya!